Good morning. Love to be back here in Chennai with all of you. Amazing energy. Well, not yet, but hopefully soon. Uh, no, but, this is something which we have tried to do in different avatars, as some of you probably remember. We started something called an HR Summit a while ago, ran it very successfully for a while, and then pivoted into what we called that time Future of Work. Then we gave it a bit of a pause, and now I think it's rightfully so. We're moving it into what is called People Summit, and the reason why this is such an important topic, it's the agenda for people agenda or talent agenda is no longer just by the HR fraternity. I mean, no offense to the HR fraternity, but you will find that this is a business imperative. It's a boardroom discussion today in terms of how, especially in the age of AI, and then what is really going on around the world, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we move on. Talent becomes such an important topic. It's truly the one which will define successful organizations from the one which don't really make it. So it's important for us to sort of get there. And as I said, in the next couple of days, we're going to think through some of these interesting questions around why talent has gotten such an important position across this multiple things that we do. And one would imagine especially with the advancement in technology, that technology might take a center stage. But as I always keep saying that we all kid ourselves by thinking that we are all in technology business, but actually we are in people business in many ways. So you will see some of that as we move forward. Now, let me give you a sense of, when countries have invested in people, they've always prospered. And while this is maybe obvious in some sense, but when you truly look at some of the names there, they're not ones which you expected to see there. Probably when you see even nations rise, you're thinking of maybe the United States or China and all of that. While they all did a very, very good job with people, and we picked some examples where you did not find, this may not be the natural example comes to your mind, Rwanda, right? I mean, Rwanda, as all of you know, with the 1994 genocide and what really happened in that country. But the fact that instead of just waiting for the aids to come, as most African countries have this, sort of a stickiness or the dependence on the United Nations aid and so on and so forth. But Rwanda sort of invested in its people, and then truly made a big difference. And they actually became the most improved country in human development across Asia, for sure. And then, they truly made that mark. Of course, I'm not by any means suggesting that Rwanda is the example for us to follow, but it's important for you to know that they made the biggest stride from where they were. They could have gone into complete oblivion in some sense, but they kind of really, struggling to make it. And the fact is that they figured out that apart from natural resources and apart from infrastructure, etc., people will become their biggest strength, and they're investing so much on the people, so much so that even from a women empowerment, I think they've done a better job than many of the other African nations. And now they have the highest percentage of women leaders in the parliament than any other country in the world, which means that, even looking at some of the advanced countries, so they've really made a big difference. And of course, the next one is Denmark. And now, as all of you know, Denmark has always been this wonderful nation where they've been number 2 in the ranking of happiness index. They've always done well as a nation, and one of the reasons is, again, their focus on people as such an important element of what the government was doing and what the leadership was doing. I think they'd made a big difference to Denmark. India, I'm not going to mention much, as you know, with our skills mission. One of the things that going for us, and I get this question often, saying that, where do you see India leading in AI, or where do you see India leading in some other technology? I mean, there is no question that it has to start with talent and what we could do with our people first, in some sense. So that being the case, let's get a little bit of a context around what really is going on around the world and why I believe this. Of course, this is not new to any of you, but uncertainty is going to become the new normal. Now, it is always a new normal, and it continues to be the new normal at today. And there are several things happening around the world, and I won't bore you with all the details of what really goes on. But then, and of course, you probably know all of that already. But then, a few things which kind of keeps this industry and the notion of uncertainty across the board. We'll start with the tariffs and how it is reshaping the world. In many sense, this wasn't a big deal a few years ago. And one could even think that this is probably even not yet become a big deal for the services industry. But if you look at around the world and the impact it is, the tariffs are creating, or the threat of tariffs in some sense, if you may, is just phenomenal. I think it's people wake up in the morning every day and then look at the papers to see what percentage it is and so on and so forth. I think it was sort of dragged on for too long, and hopefully we'll get into a little bit of a better trade agreement with, we already finished one with the UK. I'm saying we as in India, and then now we want to do one more with the US, hopefully in the next few days. So that happens, and then I think India might have a little bit of a respite. But then if you really look at it, these tariffs have been a lose-lose strategy for most of the countries in the world, and I believe that continues to sort of create significant amount of uncertainty across everything that we do, right? Including services, because even though there is no direct tariff on the services, but the fact that there is going to be tariff on the goods, which will eventually have an impact on the discretionary spend for our customers of this industry, which also means that there's going to be a lag effect on what we would do as a nation, what we do as an industry, and so on and so forth. Then the second one is around geopolitics. I think there has never been a situation, if you may, in the entire history where geopolitics plays bigger impact on the business than it is today. Which means today, whether it is the war in, starting from even Ukraine-Russia war to what is happening in the Middle East, what's happening, in our own Indian subcontinent in some sense, everywhere else, and the tension between the US and China, all of that is actually keeping geopolitics front and center of everything that we do as a business, everything that we do in technology. There's a huge impact on the technology movement, huge impact on the access to technology. All of that is actually, in many ways, bears so much of uncertainty on what we do as a nation, what we do as an industry. I won't go through all of that, but I think I also want to give you a sense of how much this has enhanced the need for sovereigns to be very independent in many ways and also sort of focus on supply chain. As you know, one of the things, people woke up to this reliance on supply chain and then the need for them to sort of really be self-contained is when we came across the pandemic. But it's even more today because of all the uncertainties created after that. Because there was a time even before the pandemic, if you go back and look at it, you will see that efficiency was overrated in some sense. Everything was about efficiency. And then over a period of time, especially with the pandemic, they felt, maybe efficiency is very good, but you also have to have resilience. So if resilience were to be pitted against efficiency, now people tend to pick resilience as one of the things that they need to be focused on. And then the fact that you don't want to be reliant on many other countries for you to sort of do what you need to do, and hence there's going to be a pivot in some of that. With all that happening around the geopolitics and tariff side, you also find that the technology is creating its own set of uncertainty across everything that we do, both as an opportunity, which you will miss out if you don't go after, as well as a threat if you caught a little bit asleep on the wheels in some sense, right? So how do you make sure that AI, generative AI, agentic AI, and then day after tomorrow there'll be something else? How do you make sure that all of that is not having a very, very or with a negative impact or a positive impact, and that creates a little amount of uncertainty as well. So, and these things will lead to what you do in businesses and the impact that you have in businesses in some sense. However, this being the global stage, you also find when you look at turn your eyes to India, I believe that it also presents a lot of opportunities. Again, as businesses, you'll have your own set of opportunities that you want to go after. But I believe that as a country, the investment that we're making on AI, the foundational investments, and the fact that there is so much of focus today, both from the government and from the organizations around what we need to do as building, whether they're building foundation models, building reasoning models, building solutions on top of that, making sure that access to GPUs, access to compute facilities available to across the board. All of that is a very, very good positive development on some of this uncertainty we saw on the previous page. Clearly, our demographic dividend, the fact that we do have the largest young workforce in the world, continues to play a big element, big positive impact on what we do as a nation. And of course, this is an industry, our technology industry, which Nasscom represents, gone through so much in the last several years. And I won't go, I'll sound, you'll really know my age when I start talking about all the way from Y2K to our mainframe. Satish is sitting and smiling because, we're probably from the same vintage in some sense. But I think these things over the years, right, the resilience of this technology industry has been phenomenal. Every time there has been a bit of a chasm, if you may, or a bit of a discontinuity. That's what I was looking for. Discontinuity in terms of what we do. This industry has come back stronger than ever before. Whether it was the financial crisis that we had, COVID is a great example. Many such crises, I think we've been able to bridge through and came out much stronger. And I think we'll continue to do that with the AI revolution as well. I know that there's a lot of debate, and we'll talk about a little bit around that as well in terms of impact on jobs because of AI, impact of jobs because of the agentic AI, and so on and so forth. But it is important for us to understand that this is an opportunity at this point in time and not a threat. Clearly, there's a lot of growth segments that we see within our industry, whether it is GCCs in one end, ER&D in many ways, even in broader startup ecosystem. All of them are actually growing, and these are growth drivers. And I was just talking to somebody earlier today. We were talking about this whole GCC gold rush. That's how we're calling it, because everybody wants to get a piece of it. And then you will find that there are more activities around the GCCs today. I'm sure here we have many of the GCCs representing in the room as well. But it's a good thing for us to sort of continue with some of that. Now, the one thing which I mentioned before is that with all that happening, we look at it both as the uncertainty as a challenge, and then the fact that there are so much of opportunity. This is not going to happen without a significant focus on people. And talent becomes the undercurrent for everything that we're going to do. And we want to re-emphasize that one more time, saying that while we might be in technology business, or we might think that we are in technology business, within that maybe in services and products and whatnot, but let's not forget that the underlying theme, and this has not been more true for this industry than, this is more true for this industry than any other industry at this point in time. And I think we enjoy the fact that our business leaders have to be people leaders. Our HR leaders will have to be business leaders, unfortunately, right? So this is the dichotomy that you will find, that you need to bring these two together in some sense. And with that being the focus, what are the 4 or 5 things? And there are many things that you can focus on, and we thought we'll call out a few things where we would like the HR leaders to, the people leaders, I don't want to say HR leaders, I want to say the people leaders will have to focus on. And it could be a CEO of the company, or it could be the CHR of the company. But how do you make sure that you are able to get the engagement going with your workforce? Today, especially with the advent of technology, AI, and then everything that you're going to be doing with technology, you're going to have a hybrid workforce, not hybrid working from office to between office and home. That could be one set of a hybrid. Also, your workforce is going to be hybrid, because you're going to have dealing with human and digital bots or agents, if you may, agentic AI. So when that happens, how do you make sure that the workforce engagement stays the same way? And this has been the biggest challenge in many ways. As you know, that engagement, especially with all, to some extent, you don't have everybody, 100% of the people back at work or back at office as you had before. How do you make sure that the engagement stays the same way? And it'll lead to the organizational culture. And as all of us say, the culture eats strategy for breakfast, and that's a thing which you know. But I believe that in today's area, today's arena, culture would eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, and probably dinner as well, right? So it is important for us to know that in the age of hybrid working, in the age of hybrid workforce, how do you make sure that the organization culture is something which you develop? You know, oftentimes we used to say that organizational culture is, or any culture, is something which you do when nobody is watching you, right? And today, the opportunity for our employees in this industry to be in a place where there's nobody is watching is much more. Which means the impact of culture, impact of what you could do, is going to be that much more important, that much more relevant. So, and hence, this is underlined, highlighted, saying that we got to really be focusing on this element of organizational culture, and then how do you really build it in this new era of technology. Of course, then we talked about this agile middle, and we always have this middle management, which always gets this pressure from both the top and the bottom, and they kind of stuck between the rock and the hard place, as they say, and they have this very they think that they're not management because there's somebody else who's sitting on top who's the management, and they don't think they're really the people who are getting the job done because there's somebody who's probably working for them. So, and the ability, and they get frustrated pretty quickly than everybody else. So, how do you make sure that you are able to address that layer, address that importance of that layer and the impact that they could have on the company overall? I would mention a couple more things before I go ahead. The HR tech is something which is becoming more and more critical, and this is for the CHROs in the room. You will find that if you're unable to use relevant modern version of the AI-infused technology for managing the workforce, you probably already are losing out on a lot in terms of getting the insight. This is no longer about having a policy and sending an email and everybody follows it. I think those days are gone, and all of you would agree with that. I think even engaging this multi-generational workforce, whether Gen Zs on one end and people like some of us in the front row here on the other end, I think it'll be very, very important for you to make sure that you're using technology to curate, to make sure that your narrative for these individuals are delivered in a very different fashion. And I think there is so much work being done at this point in time. And I believe that the people function and the way they would use technology will become that much more critical as we move forward. And of course, I'll close with saying that the learner's mindset, which is critical because of the fact that if you have to have one skill in today's world, that will be learnability, right? And people often ask, what should I be studying in the college, or even what should we be studying computer science or civil engineering or something else? But I said, it hardly matters what you would study if learnability is not part of what you do, and then all of this is going to become immaterial in many ways. And so that poses more questions for us than answers, as you know. We believe that today we also have the slow pace of job creation. There was for the longest period of time, we wanted to have for a different reason though. I mean, we thought, our growth should be not linear. I mean, in the industry, those of you around for a while, you would remember that for the longest period of time, we wanted to have this exponential growth, and the industry never really got it. It always was linear, meaning linear to the headcount growth. If your revenue grows at a certain percentage, your headcount grows at the same percentage. This was the case for the longest period of time. And people tried pivoting into products, people tried pivoting into accelerators to make sure that they are delinking the growth, revenue growth from the people growth. Never happened in the industry, right? And those of us from the larger corporations would relate to what I'm trying to say. But today, it is beginning to happen for a different reason altogether, right? Today, I think we're creating more growth for companies, and you may or may not have as many employee getting added to the same organization. So this is something which is of a concern, the fact that if you're looking at it from an organization point of view, I think or from a country point of view, I think you will find that this is something which we need to be aware of and do something differently in terms of what we want to do with the people. That's something which is worrying us in some sense. Demand-supply gap continues to exist, especially in the emerging technology. We find that there are enough people who are getting educated. There are engineers who are coming out. They're potentially educated in computer science and whatnot. But when you start to look at the skills that you need to drive your modern technology, you do not find people. This is the fact. And then there is, you need to jump through the hoop before getting somebody who can be very effective at the end of that particular cycle, if you may. And of course, what is the impact of AI on jobs? I have a different slide which takes a little bit more. I think there's a dichotomy between understanding what the AI can really do and is there going to be an impact on the jobs. The other end, how much of that is going to be real, how much of that is going to be at an enterprise grade. I mean, you do find a lot of them on the B2C grade, but then is there any enterprise grade level AI solutions which are truly defining or changing the world in some sense? Having said that, we also want to make sure that our talent strategy for this room, especially for the CHROs, you will find that the kind of hiring you did, I mean, there was a time when hiring was done purely based on the degree that you had. If you're a BTech in computer science coming out of an IIT, you don't have to worry about getting a job. You will find something, and you probably will still do. But over the years, you will find that hiring based on a degree will become thing of the past. Maybe this is already a thing of the past. And you will have to start your hiring based on capabilities and skill set. So you want to hire for the future, not hire for the past. Because when you really look at, if you're hiring for purely based on a degree, then you'll be sort of hiring for the past in some sense. Again, we talked about the hybrid work and then this whole notion of how do you build a hybrid workforce. Now, I'm not talking about hybrid way of working, but hybrid workforce where you have humans and agents and the ability for you to manage them together as one cohort and one team is going to define how we would do work in the future in many ways. Now, these are some of the stuff I mentioned in terms of the AI on jobs. This is the impact of artificial intelligence, generative AI, as well as agentic AI. And does it replace? Does it augment? This debate can go on forever, and I'm not going to give you a solution on what the real answer is. But I think you will find that this is a dichotomy in many ways. Right? There's so much of noise on one end saying that it's going to create a lot of optimism and a lot of opportunity, and it might add more jobs. Then you also equally on the other end you find that there are things that people could do, which may or may not be the right thing. So the idea here has to be very, very balanced, and you're very familiar with the company which fired about 700 people from their organization, thinking that everything will be replaced by bot, and then months later they had to go back and rehire most of them because the fact that whatever they intended to was not really was looking up. But at the same time, you also have examples on the counter side where I think agentic AI is a real thing. So the question is, are we going to look at the short term? Are we going to the long term? What is the promise of AI in this arena? Now, when this is going on, how do you make sure that you are building the teams of the future? And since my time is up, I'm not going to go through all the details, but I'm going to tell you one thing. When you look at I'll just pick on one thing from this chart, if at all. I'll talk about this T-shaped individual, which I think have always been, we had different definition of what a T-shaped individual should be over the years. And we always had a broader, the horizontal vector when you build capabilities around everything that you could do. I mean, that could have soft skills, that could have other skills, and so on and so forth. And then you had one strong vertical vector where your depth of one capability, you took it and then took it all the way down. And that will not change as we move forward. Why? It's because the ones which are on the horizontal vector is what you're going to find getting replaced more and more with AI. And one on the vertical vector, you will get augmented by AI, which means that, if you are a lawyer, if you are a whatever, so the vertical vector is what you focus on, and then you will make sure that you're not getting replaced, but you're getting augmented. You're leveraging the full power of AI, whereas in the horizontal vector, you did 15 other things. Many of them could potentially get replaced by an agentic AI in some sense. So with that, I want to welcome all of you to this wonderful conference. I'm personally very, very excited about the People Summit, and those of you from Nasscom would know that we were relentless in terms of getting it on the board and then getting it done in Chennai. But I feel that hopefully there's more to come. I mean, this is our first edition of this, and we want to curate this in a way that this becomes a leadership leadership issue. I mean, it's no longer, as I mentioned before, traditionally when you look at how leaders were made, there was always this, you had sales leadership, and you had P&L leadership, and then you had delivery leadership. For those of you, working with the delivery organizations, you'll know. And then you had people leadership, and So, but if you're a CEO of an organization, if you're running all of that, you can't be one or the other. You have to be all of it in many ways. But the point I'm trying to make is that, well, sales create opportunity. When you sell something, you create an opportunity. Delivery creates value. I mean, at the end of the day, when you deliver something, you're creating a real value for your customers. I believe that the people leadership would create across the board. It'll create the opportunity for you to even do either sales or delivery, and make sure that your organization is equipped with something which is a wonderful capability in many ways. So with that, I also want to one more thing which we want to do is the Talent Council, Nasscom Talent Council. And, as you know, Nasscom works with various councils. For example, we have a GCC council, we have a BPM council, we have a ER&D council, and so on and so forth. And we felt that this is about time for us to sort of focus on a talent council. And more to come. And then, we believe that the Talent Council will help us focus on how do you build this collaborative platform with all of you to make sure that we are able to get a future-ready tech workforce pretty soon. And then we're going to we've gotten some very good leaders who are going to be part of the Nasscom Talent Council. It's initial charter co-host, if you may.